College Success Arizona presents Student Stories. The feature of the following story and interview is Keemesha Shaw.
I was raised on the Navajo reservation up north in a little community called Burnside, Arizona.
And where did you graduate from high school?
Graduated from Ganado High School.
And how old are you currently?
Currently, I am 21.
And what are you doing so far as college?
Right now, my major is public service and public policy with a concentration in American Indian Studies and a certificate program in public administration and management.
And which school?
Arizona State University.
And what do you hope to do as a career?
I hope to work in tribal government, specifically in my tribe.
And doing what exactly? Do you have a role for yourself in mind?
Not really. I just know that I want to work in tribal politics.
Is this something you've wanted to do for a long time?
No, I didn't really get into it until I started at MCC. I originally wanted to be a veterinarian because my family has a ranch. But after I wrote an English paper about American Indian issues, I didn't really grow up knowing all these different things that is happening right now in federal Indian policy until I wrote this paper in which I completely changed my major to what I have now.
Was there something in your research or, I guess, learning that compelled you toward this course of study, like an injustice or something? Or where you said, hey, I need to get involved because this is wrong or I can make an impact here? Yeah, basically that was my kind of thinking. It's like, kind of like I always think back to my family and like the reason why all this, like, what's happening now and everything. And you're saying what's happening now. Can you tell us what that might be in some broad terms? Just like a lot of injustice from the past, like a lot of, I guess, the federal government breaking treaties in the terms like before, maybe like in the early 1950s, they did this policy called termination policy, where they would basically terminate tribes in paper, sort of. And I just kind of thought about that and like how it's affecting tribes today and how does it affect the youth and how they see themselves in the world today, because they walk in two different worlds. So that's kind of how my thinking was. And can you talk about that, growing up on the Navajo reservation? Now you're in Phoenix. One is pretty rural and essentially its own culture and country in a lot of respects. And now you're down here in Phoenix, Maricopa County, where there are like 4 million people, one of the biggest counties in the country, one of the biggest cities in the country. Can you talk about that transition? Yeah, it was very difficult my first year because everything was just like kind of culture shock, basically, like seeing the style, how people dress, and like everyday interactions, just kind of like that was really culture shock to me. And I guess the noise and just like the amount of people that are here was very overwhelming. And after I wrote my paper and I started taking American Indian Study courses at MCC, then I finally started learning more about federal Indian policy. And it just made me realize how much I didn't really know about all these different policies, because like on the reservation, we're just like in a bubble, sort of. Like we don't really hear anything from the outside of our community, and they don't hear anything from us. So it's just kind of hard to. It was just very overwhelming and kind of almost lost my self-identity through that process, but I was able to find myself and be very proud of my Diné culture. Is there on the reservation, is it a big part of life to honor your culture and tradition and teach the culture and tradition, or is it sort of a case of, well, it's here if you want to know about it? It's kind of a little bit of both. It's like at home, because the same thing happens at home. We are taught like a specific way of life, like our Diné heritage and culture and language, but at the same time, we go to school, like a public school, and they teach us basically Western education, and we kind of don't really, like, they don't really tell us to
combine both and like learn both at the same time. So basically, we just lived in two separate worlds, like at home and at school. And at the same time, when we're at school, they don't teach us about indigenous history and culture and contemporary issues. So that was kind of what got in the way at the same time. And even at the high school I went to, was like that I didn't even teach us about our indigenous history and culture. And so a lot of times when students leave the reservation and they go to school somewhere else, like I have done, they kind of go through that struggle of self-identity.
Because on one side you're Navajo, on the other side you're an American.
Yeah.
I guess, right? I can see how that would be a struggle, especially when you're young. Because I guess as you get older, you kind of figure out where you fit. But when you're young, you're presented with a lot of information and history and customs, culture, and tradition from two very different areas. Now, do you have some advice you can offer? This is a standard question we ask in these interviews. Do you have any advice you can offer to middle and high school students in the Navajo Nation and maybe elsewhere who are considering their own course to college?
Yeah, I want to tell them to listen to their elders and respect them because they're coming from a lot of experience, and just to accept them as they are and be proud of their indigenous heritage and to learn about it as much as possible, because it's very hard once you move away from home to try to learn about it because there's not that much out here.
The scholarship from College Success Arizona provides up to $6,000 per year for educational expenses. Can you tell us how that has helped you financially?
It has helped me very much so far. I have been debt-free from college. I haven't paid anything out of my pocket, and it's a lot of stress relief. It just helped me a lot knowing that I have this scholarship. And
your success advisor, or essentially mentor, provided by College Success Arizona is Barbara Scrivener. Can you talk about how she works with you, what she does exactly? She talks to me like every time she visits me, I kind of vent to her with my struggles and issues that I have at the moment. And then she just tells me, encourages me that I can continue and do what I set out to do. And she just tells me, that I'm doing it for myself. I'm not doing it for anybody else. And that's just how she encourages me to keep going and do what I'm doing. And Keemesha, can you tell us what have been the biggest struggles of college so far? I think it'd be adjusting what I was saying previously from the reservation to the city. That's been my issue with going through college. And probably time management is another one. Are you going to go on and get a master's degree? At this point, I'm not really sure. I'm kind of juggling between a master's degree and possibly going to law school. Thank you, Keemesha, for the interview and for working so hard to make a difference in our community.